Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Monday, June 18th, 2012, but we won't be bringing you the InfoWars Nightly News tonight. Yes, things are heating up for a war with Syria. There's tensions with Russia. Yes, Obama has begun unprecedented executive overreach by bypassing Congress. We're going to keep reporting on all that stuff on the radio show, but we are taking a pit stop this week. We had an overwhelming response, as you know, to the reporter contest. Alex is going to spend a lot of time to find those who are going to qualify for the top 20 videos, the top 10 videos, and then later next week we will announce winners for the male reporter and the female reporter in that contest. Meanwhile, though, there's a whole new contest to stop dictator Obama. It's to create posters, post them in your area, and do a bunch of activism to warn people that things are getting out of hand. That story's up tonight on Infowars.com, along with the video that I'll be finishing as soon as I finish this report right here. So stay with us. Don't forget about PlanetInfowars.com or PrisonPlanet.tv, and we will be back next week. In the meantime, enjoy some vintage Alex Jones reports, and stay tuned.
This is a test of the emergency alert system.
Executive Order 10,995 allows the government to seize and control the communication media.
Our nation is at war against a far-reaching network of violence and hatred. Training camps have been struck, leaders eliminated, plots disrupted. And all those involved in the attempted act of terrorism must know you too will be held to account.
Think about it. 15 years ago, we allowed the federal government to hardwire emergency takeover systems of all major communications and media in the United States. Now the federal government's coming out in the open and admitting what was already in their internal documents, that they're going to begin having federal break-ins over local news.
If this has been an actual alert, this message would contain specific information on the watch or warning being issued.
Well, it's really happening. Bona fide tyranny is coming to our shores. If you look at Egypt, you've witnessed how the government has seized control of the TV and radio stations. But in the United States, the federal government doesn't need to do that, because under changes in FCC regulations over television and radio in 1996, EAS emergency systems are put in at the radio or TV towers. They're also put in at the national and local cable systems, where the federal government puts a box in at the transmission tower where they can flip a switch and shortwave towers nationwide take over those computers and put out an audio signal of whatever message they want. I am a radio broadcaster. And I remember 15 years ago when this change was made, watching the engineer at the radio station where I worked and the station manager literally freaking out. They were sent documents that the FCC said were restricted, but I was allowed to look at them and I was allowed to videotape them. And I put it in my 1999 film, Police Day 2000.
Well, my friends, you're looking at a FEMA control box. That's right, at 98.9 KJFK-FM, where I work in Austin, Texas. That, my friends, can take over the radio station. It is radio controlled by a FEMA tower. That's right, a FEMA tower in New Braunfels, Texas. It covers almost all of the central part of the state of Texas. Little teletypes come printing out of the side of the machine weekly and update us. In the past, it was voluntary. Now it's mandatory, and they can remote control take over the station.
And in those, they told them that in the near future, the federal government would routinely seize control of their broadcast system, not during a plague or a nuclear attack or a war, but that they would seize control for routine announcements. So it was put in place, but it wasn't implemented. Now, President Barack Obama, through the FCC, has announced today that they are going to begin testing and implementing national announcements with the president giving messages to the public.
Everybody has heard the National Emergency Alert System. Radio and TV stations regularly test it to make sure the public is notified in times of peril. Well, that system is overseen by the FCC, and now the agency wants to upgrade it by having presidential announcements feed into the alert system. It's also looking at how wireless broadband could also enhance EAS.
But it gets worse. 8 years ago, I was not doing my radio show out of the studio. I was doing it out of a local talk station. I didn't have my own studio then. They got new communiques from the FCC telling them that they should prepare in the near future for multiple hours per day of federal break-ins over the local AM station. And the same systems in the cable systems, broadcast TV, talk radio, you name it. And I went to the station manager. And I said, please come on my show, talk about this. And he said, no, I showed you this stuff in confidence. You're not allowed to talk about it. You can say you heard about it, but not where. Now, since then, I've done shows out of another big talk station here in town. I've been a guest in many stations around the country, over 80 stations now that pick up my syndicated radio show. And in the last week, I have talked to station owners and managers who are now getting internal communiques from the FCC, and they're told it's national security, that they're not allowed to talk about it, but that there are going to be more and more government break-ins over radio and TV. Now, I got that news, but was trying to figure out what to do with it when today the big announcement comes out, and the FCC Obama spokesperson lady says, oh, this is no big deal. We've always had this in place. We're now just going to implement it. Well, I guess that's true. There are executive orders to seize all transportation. There are executive orders to put every American into forced labor brigades. There are executive orders to take over all of the media under nuclear attack, under continuity of government. The point is now Obama is beginning to implement this. Before 1996, you had one local station that under an emergency situation would broadcast the EAS alert. Other stations would tune to that station and carry those emergency alerts. No country in the world, not communist Russia back during the Soviet Union pre-1991, not Ceausescu's Romania, none of them had actual boxes in the radio and TV stations that would take over the entire transmission. These are wired in under regulations to the broadcast towers and at the studios. Everything by law, and I've watched the engineers complain and bitch and moan for years, has to be wired through these, and it causes all sorts of problems. They have to do weekly checks randomly where the federal government tests the takeover of the station to make sure it's in place. This is happening in America right as we go into a depression, right as foreign banks loot our country, right as they try to start new wars in the Middle East. Do you see what's happening? But it gets worse. FEMA began to put out press releases last year saying, you know what? We're going to have digital license plates across the country that have most wanted videos popping up. It'll be an LCD screen. And we're going to give you government announcements over those. You know those billboards we put up for Amber Alerts with kidnapped little kids? Now it's going to be report illegal guns, report terrorism. They're putting in these giant telescreens at these 9,000 locations, Walmarts, malls, you name it, saying, don't trust other shoppers, don't trust your neighbors, only trust Big Brother, only trust the government. Napolitano comes and inserts herself at the Super Bowl, has the TSA running checkpoints with local trained goons actually doing frisk and feeling people up. We're going into bondage. And now, in the midst of the accelerating global financial meltdown, the White House announces and says, oh, it's no big deal. We've had this on the books for years. Yeah, martial law plans for years. We're going to start testing the voice of Obama, breaking in on the media. And they're announcing that Xbox video games and other systems are going to have government announcements that pop up. Cass Sunstein, the regulation czar, has said that they want pop-ups on websites they don't agree with government messages. Google's already testing this where it tells you, ooh, look out going to this site. This information's been proven to be wrong. The internet kill switch, the cybersecurity takeover, it's all happening. They've got new FCC rules where all the alarm clocks and televisions have to have hardwired chips in them so they can fire your television or radio up and make you hear announcements in the middle of the night. They've also announced in this new press release that, the FCC and the federal government are going to put in free national broadband that we pay for as taxpayers, but it's going to be under our filtered rules. In the free broadband in Europe at the bus and train stations, guess whose websites are censored? Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. What did Google announce 2 weeks ago? That they're going to start censoring and blocking out from their searches content farms like the Drudge Report and Infowars.com. That is, sites that aggregate news and make comments on news. This is a full spectrum takeover of the media in our country. This is an attack on free speech. This is literal government messages on digital billboards, at checkout counters, on your license plate, on your cell phone, on your pop-up video games. This is the federal government coming in and forcing their messages directly into the media because the population doesn't buy into their propaganda anymore. There has been a continuity of agenda. This has been going on for decades. They've been setting the system up. But now they're rolling it out, and that's the message here. What does it say about our society? This is unbelievable. This is the Fairness Doctrine 2.0. This is authoritarian censorship by way of government break-ins with announcements. No country's ever done this. This is beyond 1984, and it's really happening. Do people realize the magnitude of this? And in America, supposed land of freedom, I'm getting frantic calls from station owners and managers as they're being told to get ready for all of this to happen in the last few weeks, and going back 8 years ago and going back 15 years ago. When I get these documents as they put this system in place, the station owners are afraid to speak out. The station managers are afraid to speak out. Why? Why? We need to say no. This is a free market, free private property society. In the name of security, the government is hardwiring everything so they can take it over? Egypt, anybody? This is worse than what happened in Egypt. That's what Mubarak did. But he didn't have it hardwired. He physically had the army go take it over. This is as plain as the nose on my face. This is brazen, naked, hardcore, scary tyranny. And when I saw them announce this, even though I knew it was coming for all these years, it shook me to my very core, and it should shake you. When they put tyranny in place, they can take the pension funds, the veterans' death benefits, that's already begun. They can jack up taxes. They can shut down newspapers, TV, radio. The last time this happened was during the Civil War. Lincoln did similar things, arresting scores of newspaper owners and editors. This is here. The globalists have committed so many crimes. They know they're unpopular with the people. They know Congress has an 11% approval rating, and so they are moving with the system to force their propaganda onto all private media in this country. And it's going to start with little short announcements, and it's going to move until huge blocks of programming are openly taken over by the government. If we don't have free speech and the First Amendment and a free press in this country, we have nothing. The internet has been a wonderful tool to enlighten and inform and awaken the masses, but it's also a double-edged sword created by DARPA. Electronics, computer chips are so cheap, everything is being wired for the federal takeover. This is announced. This is a fact. We are entering a time when you're not going to be able to access Infowars.com and other alternative sites. We're already being blocked all over the world. They've already got the system in place. And that's scary enough, but if they send up this trial balloon and we go along with it, they are going to implement the full takeover of the media. Whether you're liberal, conservative, libertarian, communist, socialist, it doesn't matter. Atheist, Christian, all media is under attack. We must come together and resist this. We must say no to this. This is a major canary in the coal mine. This is a full spectrum takeover of the media. Let's not let them pull that switch. Get the word out to everybody. I have been having chills for 3 hours since this announcement came out. I knew the hammer was going to drop, but this is so incredible. We've got to hang together for the First Amendment, or we're surely going to hang separate. Thank you. The rest is up to you. Please spread the word. It is now time. time for radio and TV station owners to stand up to this corruption, to this police state takeover of the First Amendment and private property, and let the system know they are not going to put up with the federal government's takeover of our media system. Enough is enough. It is time to define the military actions of the last 9.5 years. What do you call the million dead Iraqis, the lies about WMDs, the near-decade-long occupation of Afghanistan, the drone attacks inside our supposed ally, Pakistan, the drone attacks in Yemen, the U.S. warships off the coast of Syria, and the EU and UN calls for sanctions? What do you call this? Where is it all originating from? What's the end game? What's the goal? Well, if you look at historical references and comparisons, this is undoubtedly the beginning of a new major multi-regional war. And how do you define a multi-region, long-term war with large casualties with many countries involved? You call it a world war. But in our modern Orwellian age, the spin doctors have simply labeled it as vengeance for 9/11, and then looking for WMDs, and then hunting for Al-Qaeda, and then liberating countries. And in the last 9 years, we have seen invasion after invasion against the Middle East and Central Asian countries. We're not saying that Muammar Gaddafi is good or that Assad of Syria is good. What we're saying here is that the reasons we're being given for these invasions, that their humanitarian actions, are frauds. We were told that Gaddafi strafed peaceful crowds with helicopters. No proof was ever released. We were told he had rape gangs fueled by Viagra. The State Department had to admit that that was a fraud. Just like the State Department had to admit that testimony to Congress back in 1990 about Saddam Hussein and his forces throwing babies out of incubators and killing them was a PR lie. It's about bringing in a world government and openly al-Qaeda forces being used in the east of Libya to destabilize. It's simple. The big mega banks that run the West go in, foment guerrilla warfare groups to start wars with their countries, whether those countries are good or bad. The facts are they foment the rebellions. Once the rebellion is on, the sanctions come in, then the drone attacks, the full bombardments, and then the ground invasions. And now as we see U.S. forces building up off the coast of Syria, U.S. forces, special forces building up inside Libya, the ground forces getting ready, this begins to officially fit the definition of a world war. Then there is the debate about what name to use. I called this the beginning of World War III in that video. But if you really read what the Pentagon and neocons have to say, they call the 50-year-long Cold War. They call that World War III and say that proxies were used and it was done in multi-regions. I've seen quotes of George W. Bush calling the war on terror, which is a war against sovereign nations, World War III. So is it World War IV? I don't know, but it is a world war. It undoubtedly is a corporatist, neo-colonial operation to destabilize the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia and replace the tyrannies that were there with even more draconian tyrannies that we in the West are paying for, while at the same time the social engineers use the outside threat as a pretext to take our liberties. Many people who watched my video titled Obama Launching World War III misunderstood what I meant by World War III. I understand that in popular culture, World War III signifies a Cold War nuclear exchange with Russia. And of course, we don't know how World War III would end, but we do know that World War IV would be fought with sticks and stones. I'm not talking about a surefire Armageddon. I'm not talking about total megadeath and billions dead or the earth rendered lifeless. I'm talking about the definition of a world war. Multiple regions with many different nations involved with high body counts over a long period of time that affects the entire world. via our dead troops, increased oil prices, bankrupt deficits. It's all there. This is a world war. And it's been going on now for at least 9 years, but it's coming to a head. It's intensifying. There's 5 major wars going on right now. And yes, it could lead with China threatening the United States and NATO, with Russia threatening, with U.S. warships going into the Black Sea. A lot of other analysts are saying this could lead to World War III. And by World War III, they mean the hot thermonuclear World War III, not the standard New World War. So I think the best way to describe this is the way Gerald Celente did going back more than 6 months ago. It's the new Great War of the 21st century. It's going on from North Africa all the way across the Middle East into Central and Southern Asia. And it is turning the entire world against the United States, Europe, and the NATO-led nations. And it is undoubtedly being done using American ingenuity, blood, and treasure to expand the power of the private corporate global government. So call it World War III, World War IV, the next great war of the 21st century, whatever name you give it, it's big. And everything is basically accelerating and deteriorating, and major global moves are happening on every front. And there's no mistake this is happening as the world financial system implodes and as the private IMF and World Bank attempt to bring the once wealthy Western nations under their austerity control system and on its ashes build this open private bank of the world. We've still got time. We're at the crossroads right now. If we speak out, get the word out, and point out what's happening, that this is a war and not a kinetic humanitarian action. If we reach out to Congress, who's already suing Obama over not getting congressional approval for the new Libyan war, we have a chance of reversing this. Clearly, false flag attacks are in the offing. The preparatory phase of conditioning the public to blame countries like Pakistan and Libya is going on right now. All of the different factors are aligning to confirm that this new world war will be a corporatist war directed against sovereign nations, but not just Libya and Pakistan or Iran, but against the United States. They use the outside threat as the pretext to also clamp down here at home, just like Adolf Hitler did. I'm Alex Jones. You have been warned. Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds? Go to Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv for the latest headlines and cutting-edge information.
Have you been to InfoWarsShop.com lately? Express your inner patriot with these brand new InfoWars t-shirts. Say it loud with the InfoWars Bullhorn shirt. Or educate the sheeple with the Bill of Rights shirt. Grope the public's mind with the TSA shirt. And with this shirt, you can let the dark side know of the Rebel Alliance's power. All available at InfoWarsShop.com.
For more than 6 years, I've talked on the air about creating a social network. PlanetInfoWars.com is in its beta phase. We're just launching it. And I want to invite all of you out there to be in on the ground level. Planet InfoWars is about people coming together, forming activist organizations, getting involved politically, hunting and fishing, gardening, dating. This is a place for people who love freedom to meet and to talk and to write and to post information. And I give you this pledge. We are not going to spy on you and sell your data to the New World Order. PlanetInfoWars.com is free, so people who love freedom can get together, connect with people who are awake and know what we're facing. Be active, organize, take action, go viral, create, contribute, resist, because resistance is victory. You are victory. It's waiting for you to breathe power into it. PlanetInfoWars.com. Hello, friends. Thank you for watching. This is an extremely important video. This is something that you can immediately take control of in your life that will massively give you and your family improved health benefits. I've done deep, deep research, and I've interviewed brain surgeons and scientists like Dr. Russell Blaylock, top chemist and toxicologist like Dr. Paul Conant, and just countless others. I've had the former heads of the EPA union and the FDA unions on in the last 11 years, who since 2000 have had tens of thousands of their members in their unions, scientists, send letters and petitions to the government saying, we know sodium fluoride is at least doubling bone cancer in the general public and more than doubling it in men. We know that sodium fluoride is attacking the thyroid, and then listing all the mainline studies. We know it's causing dental fluorosis and problems, not just in the teeth, but in the bones. And so under that incredible pressure, 6 years ago, the American Dental Association came out and said, you know what? If you're under 6, you don't want to brush with fluoride toothpaste. And then other branches of the federal government came out and said, you know what? You don't want to give babies in their baby formula that you mix up, or their cereal, their rice cereal, you don't want to give them fluoride tap water. But then you go to the baby store. I have 3 children, 3 small children. You go to the baby store and it's 5, 6, 7 brands, all the brands of water, bottled water, say fluoride for babies. Fluoride, nursery water, what they need. And I'm going, well, wait, they've said for 6 years, they admit it's hurting their brains, it's hurting their teeth, it's causing dental fluorosis before the teeth have emerged. What's going on? And then I see children's toothpaste that they're targeting 2-year-olds with that's got Spider-Man on it, or Superman, or Batman. I mean, it's got, or Papa Smurf, you name it. And it's sodium fluoride for kids. It says on the back, if you swallow even a pea size of this, called poison control. Everybody knows kids eat toothpaste. I've got organic for mine, and my kids, you know, especially the little ones, are always trying to eat it. And so with horror, I sit here and I warn people, and we have the studies, we have the admissions. And then something wild happened last week on the 7th day of January 2011. Something amazing happened. All of a sudden, the CDC put out a press release, the federal government did, and the AP and others picked it up, and it said, too much fluoride in water, government says, high levels causing spots on teeth, recommended limit to be lowered from 0.7 or 1.2 milligrams per liter, or 1 part per million, roughly. And they're saying that they want to lower that even more because they're admitting it's causing dental fluorosis, yellow spots on the teeth. Also, the teeth are getting weak. They don't tell you the rest of what their studies have shown. Massive increases in bone cancer, massive reductions in IQ. I mean, this has been known for almost 100 years. Fluoride's one of the most studied things out there because it naturally kept getting in water supplies all over the world and causing problems. The Chinese know, the Japanese know, the U.S. knows, the Germans. I mean, it's a sick joke how documented all of this is. And they really overall whitewash it in the article. You know, they're saying, oh, you'll get enough if we cut that amount in half. What they don't tell you is massive more amounts of this are put in things like powdered eggs and thousands of other processed products, sodium fluoride, that it's in toothpaste at levels much, much higher than it is water, that it's being used as a pesticide now on crops, and it goes through the cell wall of the plants and bioaccumulates. The fact is their poisoning is so accelerated that they know that we're becoming aware of it, and so they know that it's coming to a critical flashpoint with the public, so they're backing off and going, okay, yeah, those studies are out there. Okay, scientists in the government, stop complaining. We'll cut the amount, knowing that they're not really targeting you so much in the water now as they are in the food, in the toothpaste, in the crops that are having it sprayed on it. Now, for those that wonder why government did this all over the world 60 years ago, and why the federal government in our country or even in England will spend millions of dollars per town lobbying to have it put in, we know why. We have the Rockefeller Foundation documents, even from the 60s, where they talk about adding sterilants to vaccines. We have John P. Holder, the White House science czar, talking about in the 70s, adding sterilants to water. We have the studies going back to the 20s where governments and universities knew that sodium fluoride was lowering fertility, lowering IQ. This is being added to the water to dumb you down, to control you. And they've known all along. And there's an even bigger twist that we cover in our interview with Dr. Paul Conant that we're going to link here on the bottom of the video. So hopefully you will send it to your friends and family so they can learn the truth. Your friends and family who've been in denial about fluoride, who just laugh at you and say, oh, my precious bodily fluids, like a line from Stanley Kubrick's great film, Dr. Strangelove, you can send them the Associated Press about this because they've been saying for 6 years babies and small children shouldn't drink any of this water, shouldn't brush their teeth with it. And now they're just kind of covering their butt again, warning people, while still simultaneously making fun of people. Because the big secret is that depending on where your water district, whether it's Germany, Canada, England, Australia, the United States, depending on where your water district, your city, buys these so-called sodium fluoride, between 150 and 300 plus chemicals are in the so-called sodium fluoride. That's the other big secret. Sodium fluoride's bad enough. Lead, mercury, arsenic, radiation particles, radium, different isotopes of uranium, because they mine, most of the sodium fluoride comes from the byproducts of phosphate mining, where they mine the phosphate for fertilizer, but they can't use the toxic waste. They just certify it from China and ship it over here, or they certify it from Florida and ship it, into your city, and then you drink it. I mean, you can't make something up this bad. And I remember Dr. Conant was here a few months ago and talked about radioactive isotopes in the water and how they know it's in there. And then a few weeks later, it came out in Texas that the state for decades had covered up knowing that radioactive isotopes were in the drinking water and were certifying it as safe. What they don't tell you is, though, that it's happening all over the state and all over the country because it's coming from the so-called fluoride they're adding. See, the cover-ups admitted that uranium's in there because they know that uranium's bad. They can't tell you it's good like they lied to you about fluoride. So they just covered up that they're putting that in. And that's the real big secret. So please, this is something we can take control of. We can stop drinking the toxic waste-filled water. You can stop having your children bathe in it with some pretty simple filtration systems on your house. You can move out to the country and drill a well. You can get away from this because depending on how many parts per million, we're talking 20 point, 15, 10 point, 8 point, 6 point IQ reductions. We're talking about thyroid problems. We're talking about your pancreas being burned out, all sorts of early onsets of heart disease because it calcifies in the arteries and the ventricles. We're talking about massive brain damage being caused by it, according to Dr. Blaylock and other top scientists. I mean, these are brain surgeons. These are professors. This is the literature. Do you understand? This is an absolute fact. And they're just covering their butts here. It took decades since they approved Prozac in 1981 to get them to admit on the drug insert that it does cause massive increases in suicide and psychotic behavior. Everybody knew because 99% of the mass shooters were on it. And it just puts them into a violent dream state when they're having a bad day. Now they've had to put it on the serotonin reuptake inhibitor family of Prozac type drugs. And it's the same thing with fluoride. They're just putting the proviso in now to cover their butts. But now the denial's over, you can take even this whitewash and show it to people and save a lot of children's IQs, save a lot of women's thyroids. It really hits women bad in that area. Hits men worse in the bones. So many young people now getting arthritis directly linked to these chemicals in the water. Please warn everybody we can't fix the IMF and World Bank and the implosion of the dollar overnight. We can't stop all the nuts going around and shooting people, overnight. We can't stop all these illegal wars, but we can sure stop eating GMO foods and drinking sodium fluoride. We can sure start loving our neighbors and talking to our friends and building our communities, because if you want to fix this country and fix the world, it starts in the mirror. So warn everybody about sodium fluoride and other chemicals being added in the water. This is a big secret. Watch our other video, Food, the Biggest Secret, that we put together that's been watched hundreds of thousands of times. And let's come together and really educate folks about what's happening so people can use their free will to protect themselves. Thank you for watching. Now the ball's in your court. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.